Tonight, 15 minutes of training for the man who says he was a fire warden at the Perth Hotel where 3 people died. The long-term resident describes the horror inside the hotel on the night.
I screamed, "Get out, get out, get out, there's a fire." And then it was kind of blank after that.
Also making the headlines, a triple threat hitting the health service. A surge of COVID, flu and strep A adds to the buckling pressure, with flu numbers at a 7-year high.
In sport, we're on the end of too many wrong decisions. The Celtic manager hits out over ref calls.
And thousands of Ukrainian refugees celebrate Orthodox Christmas Eve in Scotland. I'm Emma Cameron in Edinburgh.
And I'm John Mackay in Glasgow. This is the STV News at 6. Good evening. 15 minutes of training for the man who says he was a fire warden at the Perth Hotel where 3 people died in a fatal fire. The long-term resident of the county hotel has spoken of his horror after finding smoke billowing through the hotel.
Staff say they raised repeated concerns about faulty electrics and fire hazards, but claim the owner refused to pay for repairs. Tonight, the victims of the blaze have been named as sisters Donna Janse van Rensburg and Sharon McLean from Aberdeen, as well as Keith Russell, who was from Edinburgh. Lynn Rankin reports.
And as soon as I opened my door, I was hit with a black ball of smoke. And then I did what I could. I couldn't see 2 inches in front of me. Just tried to evacuate as many people as possible. Sadly, not everybody made it.
Fighting through the fire, this man tried to save residents from the burning hotel. He doesn't want to be identified, but having stayed in the hotel for a year and a half, he says he was trained as a fire marshal.
I think we all really need to get proper training. You know, this 10-15 minutes training, that's no training, no matter if it's for fire training or whatever it may be, that's not training. So in terms of what was in place at the time, I didn't think it was adequate for a hotel.
2 sisters from Aberdeen, 47-year-old Sharon McLean and Donna Janse van Rensburg, who was 44, died in the blaze alongside Donna's dog, Joey. Keith Russell, originally from Edinburgh, also lost his life. His family said the 38-year-old was a loving father and will be greatly missed. It's emerged that 2 weeks before the fire, Perth and Kinross Council served the hotel with 3 health and safety improvement notices. One for uneven flooring and torn carpets, another highlighting broken windows, and a third raised concerns that no competent staff were on duty overnight.
The safety concerns that have been raised are of a significant level, so that obviously has to be looked at as part of the proper and thorough investigation that must be undertaken. It's vital that that investigation provides all of the answers to those who've been bereaved by this tragedy and also provides public confidence about the safety of hotels of this type.
Staff say they raised repeated concerns over many months about faulty electrics, no heating and poor maintenance, but nothing was done by the owner.
The Which Consumer Group has raised concerns about this. Myself and other fire experts have been raising concerns, and we need to again look at how we prevent these tragic life loss and the why, the how, the where, the when of somebody actually losing a life when it was a time of celebration.
The mobile number you've called is currently unavailable. Please try again later.
Well, we've tried multiple times today to contact the owner of the hotel, Rashid Hussain, but all of our calls have gone unanswered. The owner of the hotel, Rashid Hussain, also owns this hotel on the Isle of Wight. It was closed by management earlier this week. The council there is investigating complaints received about it last year.
They've had the fire department going in there. Their fire alarm was constantly going off during the winter months. When they were shut, we were having to call out the fire brigade to break in, to turn it off.
A police and fire investigation is still ongoing, but for the families of those who died, it's been a tragic start to the new year.
Every day, the last couple of days, I've started to get flashbacks, and all I can see and hear is people screaming, obviously shouting for their loved ones. I don't know how to describe it.
Well, Lynn joins us now from Perth. Lynn, you've spoken to a number of people who worked at the hotel today. How concerned were they?
Yes, all of the members of staff that I've spoken to today say they raised repeated concerns about the rundown state of the hotel. They talked about carpets being held together with tape, emergency lighting not working, and faulty electrics frequently tripping sockets. Now, you heard from the long-term resident in my report who tried desperately to save as many residents from the burning hotel. He's been left traumatised by this tragedy and suffering from flashbacks. He, along with other members of staff, say they're simply devastated by the loss of 3 people in this fire.
Lynn, many thanks for that.
Scotland is facing a triple threat of COVID, flu and strep A this winter, as the number of people with flu in hospital is the highest it's been in 7 years. Medics say it's putting more pressure on an NHS already stretched to near breaking point in primary and emergency care.
It comes as new figures show 1 in 25 people currently have COVID in Scotland, the highest number since last summer. In a moment, we'll hear from the Health Secretary, who's been in an emergency meeting of the government's Resilience Committee this afternoon. But first, here's our political reporter, Laura Alderman.
This is how 6-year-old Chloe looked after contracting strep A last year. With a head-to-toe rash, Mum Sadie took her to the GP 4 times before the infection was finally identified. Although Chloe's now fully recovered, the family are still suffering with other winter bugs, so spoke to us from their home in Irvine today.
I remember sitting nights crying my eyes out because I could see the different changes in her, and I just kept going, how can these doctors not know what's wrong with her? And everybody kept us saying, take her to E&E and stuff like that. But I just felt like they were so busy. And after that, the rash started coming up, like sunburn and stuff like that. And it started going on her neck. And then her face was swelling up and getting all red. Gave me such a fright. So definitely go straight to doctors, any signs.
When my mum put the cream on, it was cold and I hated it. But she had to do it for my own good to get it away. And now my face looks much more better.
Although there was a spike in strep A infections last year, new figures show cases starting to fall significantly in the last week. But flu remains extremely prevalent. The number of people in hospital with flu is at its highest level in 7 years, with patients aged less than 1 year old having the highest admission rates. And COVID is on the rise too, with a 15% jump in the number of people in hospital with the virus.
Immunity for flu is low. We haven't seen it since really the peak in 2017. We haven't seen much of it. And of course, in the last few years, we've been protecting ourselves from COVID. So we've been wearing masks, we've been washing our hands, doing all of the good public health measures that protects you against the spread of infection.
GPs are often the first port of call for non-emergencies, but they're feeling the pressures too.
That's probably the tipping point from our primary care and secondary care, I would say. Since I graduated as a GP, I haven't seen that pressure, that type of pressure we are facing. We have to adjust our service within our limited resources.
The difficulty is it's not just this winter, it's what happens next winter. It's all very well if you think you can see some light at the end of the tunnel, that things are going to get better. But we've been talking about this workload and workforce crisis even pre-pandemic, and very little has happened to improve it.
With challenges mounting on the NHS, pressure is also growing on the Health Secretary Humza Yousaf. There's growing calls for him to resign, but on Tuesday he's set to deliver a statement here at the Scottish Parliament setting out the current state of the NHS. Laura Alderman, STV News.
Well, a short time ago, the Health Secretary told us what had happened at today's emergency meeting.
So a number of things were decided, and again, I'll update Parliament next week in detail, but there were some actions that we'll look at in terms of any availability of interim beds, for example, to again improve the delayed discharge picture, because the number one message we're getting from health boards and doctors and nurses working on wards is that this is a capacity issue. We need to create some capacity to help, given the demand that we're seeing at the front door of our acute side. So that was one of the key issues. You've probably seen it, and maybe covered it in your news report yesterday, that Lanarkshire, for example, have added some extra days for their primary care, their GPs to open on the weekends. We're discussing that with local health boards and seeing, well, is every single health board having those discussions with their general practice to see if there's anything more they can do around extending opening hours. So
Health Secretary, there seems to be a lot of discussion going on and no action, and what's needed is action now. We've heard throughout the STV news this week of horror stories from the NHS and excess deaths. So it's surely gone beyond discussion. It needs action.
Look, I disagree with the premise of your question. I mean, the reason why I stood up in October time to give an update to Parliament, which I'm sure you extensively covered, was to give a detailed account of the action that was being taken then. And not only taken then, in fact, we took action last winter with recurring funding so that those additional staff that we hired from last winter remained in post for this winter. But let's be frank, John, we're dealing with an unprecedented scale of demand. When you and I were talking maybe 4 weeks ago before Christmas, flu was at moderate level.
Health Secretary, forgive me, but this is no surprise. You warned that this was going to be a very, very difficult winter. None of that is a surprise.
And John, that's why we took action. But if you're saying to me that we could have taken action that somehow meant everything would be rosy in the park in winter, well, I'd ask you to look at every single health service, not just across the UK, but in fact many health services across Europe and indeed around the world.
I understand that, but you're talking about discussions just now. I'm asking you, what further action are you going to take beyond discussion?
I've just given you a range of them. So we'll look to see, we're not looking to see, we're actively engaging with our local authority partners, making sure that every single care home bed is being utilised where possible. Is there more we can do around potential interim solutions? It may not be people's first or second choice.
Forgive me, Health Secretary, this is discussion, this isn't action.
It's not discussion, John. It was discussed at the SCOR meeting, and now people are getting on with doing the action that was discussed from the SCOR meeting. So yes, there was a discussion at SCOR, and there was further actions that came out of SCOR, which are now being implemented straight after SCOR. So I'm sorry, it's not just a discussion. There's been plenty of action pre-SCOR, and there's now some further actions in the back of SCOR that we're looking to see what more we can do.
The Health Secretary speaking to John there. The leader of the Scottish Conservatives admits turmoil at Westminster is causing profound difficulties for his party here. In his first major speech of the year, Douglas Ross said he was more than happy to put 2022 behind him after both Boris Johnson and Liz Truss were ousted as Prime Minister. He also accused Scottish Labour of backing the SNP on key issues at Holyrood.
In almost every part of her government's agenda, Nicola Sturgeon can count on Labour votes in the same way she can count on the support of the Greens. They're already in an unofficial coalition working hand in glove to support this SNP government. How can Labour be trusted to stand up to this SNP government when they agree with most of the policies they're delivering?
I think this is a desperate attack from Douglas Ross. Douglas Ross is well known for flip-flopping. He flip-flopped so many times on who he's supporting for the Tory leadership over the last 12 months, and he's really not got a consistent position in relation to this either.
Now, for Ukrainian families who follow the Orthodox religious calendar, this is Christmas Eve. Tomorrow's celebrations will be bittersweet for the thousands of refugees who've arrived in Scotland since the Russian invasion in February last year.
As the war continues, despite hopes of a Christmas ceasefire, Ukrainian women gathered at an Edinburgh community centre to honour traditions. Kay Nicholson went to speak to them.
Preparing kutia is a festive ritual for Tanya. The traditional Ukrainian dish is at the heart of Orthodox Christmas Day.
I'm very thankful to the ladies and to the Ukrainian club for giving us a chance just to gather together, share the meal. It's always difficult to talk about the war. But I know that we are sure and we believe in our army, and we're sure that we will win because our soldiers, they are brave.
As these women prepare tomorrow's feast, thoughts are never far from home, especially in the wake of Russia's call for a 36-hour ceasefire.
We watched a speech of our president. We're crying because we're very worried about our people.
The Edinburgh Ukrainian Club was set up by men displaced after the Second World War. It's now run by their daughters, who are passionate about their roots.
And every area has their own embroidery, just like the tartan. So things like that. So just being in a room and feeling this is part of your culture. It'll be very busy, it'll be very emotional, and it'll be very Ukrainian.
The club is doing what it can for those still in Ukraine too, arranging for supplies to be delivered to the western border every month. It's also working closely with other groups supporting refugees in Scotland.
The help that Scotland and Great Britain has offered the Ukrainians that have arrived here over the last 10 months has been second to none. They can't thank us enough, they can't do enough for us to try and show us a bit of gratitude back. But we only want to keep them safe as long as we can until they can return.
Despite the heartache, Ukrainians living here hope to find some solace in being together tomorrow. Kay Nicholson, STV News, Edinburgh.
To other stories, and the Education Secretary says there's room for compromise after another round of pay talks with teaching unions. Primary and secondary teachers are set to go on strike next week. The latest deal would see the lowest paid receiving a rise just under 7%, an offer that has been rejected by unions. The Scottish Government say the demand for a 10% pay rise is unaffordable. Further talks will take place on Monday. Campaigners are looking for volunteers to collect and monitor litter as part of a project aimed at assessing the impact of Scotland's deposit return scheme. When the initiative comes in later this year, shoppers will pay a 20p deposit when buying drinks in cans and bottles, with this cash then refunded when containers are returned. It's hoped the scheme will lead to a drop in litter. Glasgow is hosting of the world's biggest cycling event, will leave a lasting legacy for Scotland, the Culture Secretary Angus Robertson has said. The UCI Cycling World Championships, which take place in August, will see more than 2,000 elite cyclists and paracyclists compete in events in the city and across the country. Over 1 million spectators are also expected to come to Scotland for the event. The Scottish SPCA is warning it's expecting a challenging 2023 as the number of people giving up pets or looking for advice about caring for them during the cost of living crisis soars. Calls from those who need to rehome their animals have trebled over the last year. Selina Jackson has been along to the charity's site in Hamilton to find out how they're coping.
Demand at this Scottish SPCA centre is as high as it's ever been. The charity is now looking after 1,000 animals across Scotland. That's already around 15% more than last year. It comes after more people bought pets during the pandemic, but have since found their circumstances change as bills continue to rise.
Tim was brought in 2 weeks ago as a stray. Staff say the number of stray and abandoned animals is only likely to increase as people struggle to afford to pay for their pets.
We're receiving more and more calls to our animal helpline from concerned members of the public. Our inspectors are seeing it every single day in every community. They're going out to more calls. People are really struggling. There's so many different things that we're really trying to do to support, but it's a very challenging time and we know that that's going to sadly continue.
Last year, the charity launched the Pet Aid programme, pairing up with food banks to get support to those who need it most.
So that's perfect. We've got some more cat food in here.
Brilliant, because we need so much of that at the moment.
Yep. So we're providing things such as foods, jackets, leads, collars, harnesses and things like that. Whatever the food bank needs, we will support them with that.
We work with 35 food banks across Scotland, 17 local authority areas, and that's growing. We're really keen to expand that to support as many people as possible.
It's expected this service will be rolled out to 100 food banks across Scotland by the end of this year. In the meantime, the charity is also running a new fostering programme to help free up space in the centres until permanent homes can be found for animals like these. Selina Jackson, STV News, Hamilton.
Now we want to hear your stories. The details are on screen.
And details on the screen of any... Well, time for sport now and plenty coming up.
And the refs getting it again tonight, Raman.
Aren't they always, John? And tonight it's the Celtic manager who is unhappy.
Get your fill of the action. STV Sports,
Sponsored by Papa John's Pizza.
Good evening. Ange Postecoglou says major refereeing decisions are going against Celtic, which he claims won't be evened out come the end of the season. The parquet boss is unhappy after his side was denied a penalty against Rangers. Meanwhile, Michael Beale has revealed he has held talks with at least 2 potential signings and says they are very keen to move to Ibrox. Here's Ronnie Charters.
It was a technology brought in to clarify and correct. But for some, it's caused confusion and controversy. 11 weeks since video assistant referees were introduced, and still some aren't happy. Today was the turn of Ange Postecoglou to hit out at its implementation, insisting the champions have been on the wrong end of a number of wrong decisions.
There's been zero consistency in the decisions being made. Over the course of a season, these things usually even themselves out, but when I look at the introduction of VAR and the decisions have gone against us in particular, zero chance that that's going to even up between now and the end of the year, because it's just remarkable that we've had at least three major decisions go against us.
This is the incident which has angered the Celtic manager. An apparent handball by Connor Goldson, but VAR decided no penalty.
I guarantee you that if that game finished 2-2 and it was Rangers that were denied that decision, the talk this week would be about how that was a title-defining decision. It's a penalty, in my mind. Before we even started introducing VAR, it's always been a penalty. To be honest, there was only 2 saves made in the game, one by Joe and one by Connor. That was it.
So a wrong decision for the Celtic manager. Not so, says his Rangers counterpart.
With the handballs, I suppose the whole of the world football is a little bit unsure at times, but when you see what's actually written, then I think they got the decision right. I thought John and the other officials managed the game on the day very, very well. I actually thought that when the game ended, there's always some things you think can go for you or against you. When you read the rule, it seems like they got it to the letter.
Beale was speaking having been named the Premiership Manager of the Month for December, and he's hoping to make his first signings as Ibrox boss soon.
We've spoken to 2 or 3 players. Our phone's not stopped really. There's a lot of players interested in coming here. I've got to make sure they're the right one. I'm a little bit fussy. I want to sit in front of a player and I want to look in his eyes. I would say that the 2 or 3 that I've spoken to are very keen to come, and sooner rather than later, same on our side. So let's see. There won't be anyone in, obviously, before this weekend.
Ronnie Charters, STV News.
Lee Johnson is adamant he will turn around Hibernian's fortunes, insisting his only focus is on beating Motherwell on Sunday. The Hibs manager is under pressure after suffering 9 defeats in the last 11 games. The players insist they are right behind their boss. Jamie Borthwick reports.
Any derby defeat can lead to a week of soul-searching. Coming during a period of sustained poor form, the scrutiny on Lee Johnson and his role in charge of Hibernian has ramped up. He insists the pressure won't get to him.
I just want to win. I just want to win the next set, win the next games. As simple as that. The focus for me is do everything we can to beat Motherwell. We're not bottom of the league. You know what I mean? We're in a position where, as of today, we're a couple of wins away from where we want to be.
The 3-0 loss at Tynecastle on Monday was followed by some frank words from Johnson as he slammed the mediocrity in his squad and said up to 10 of them could leave this month. But the players dismiss any suggestion of disharmony.
We're right behind the gaffer. We have been since he's been in. It's just about us wanting to do it for ourselves as well. I think you go out there, you need to have a bit of pride about you to go out and win football matches, and I think we've got a group in there that has done that. It's not happened recently, but I think it will start picking up.
Talks over selling Ryan Porteous have not progressed, and the defender is available to face Motherwell. Stephen Hamill's side have lost Louis Moult, who's been recalled from his loan by Burton Albion. The Well boss is desperate to strengthen his squad.
Every spare minute that we get out with the first team in terms of our prep for that is being spent on that. It's been frustrating. So far we've came close with a couple already, but not quite able to get anything over the line yet, but hopefully that will change soon.
Motherwell and Hibs have just 2 wins each since October last year. They'll face off at Fir Park, both in dire need of the 3 points. Jamie Borthwick, STV News.
Similar manager Stephen Robinson has revealed he has new contract offers on the table for 3 players and hopes they join Greg Kiltie in committing to the club. Kiltie signed a 2-year contract extension last week and Robinson wants the trio to follow suit. Well, the Saints face Hearts tomorrow on the back of a 3-game unbeaten run. Robbie Nielsen's side travelled to Paisley following their comprehensive win over Hibs.
2 games back to back against Hearts. They're obviously good team, a lot of options. They'll be coming in with confidence, but we need to just kind of use our home form to our advantage really, and hopefully get everyone behind us and start positive in the game. And if I think we do that, then it will be a good day.
First thing we spoke about when we got back from the break is let's really knuckle down this third place and try and hunt Rangers down in second. And obviously we started off well now. We just need to keep the form up on Saturday.
Well, here are all the weekend's Premiership games. Celtic host Kilmarnock after their draw last weekend. Livingston take on Ross County, while Aberdeen host St Johnstone. And Rangers' match against Dundee United on Sunday is a 4 o'clock kick-off.
Get your fill of the action. STV Sports, sponsored by Papa John's Pizza.
Now, Philip has that all-important weekend weather forecast.
Hello, good evening. Well, it's Friday, so we'll end the week by showing some of the beautiful pictures that have been sent in this past week to us on Instagram from across the country. If you're heading about on Saturday and Sunday and take any more photos, then do send them in to us using the hashtag STV Snaps, tagging us at STV Weather, and we could show a few next week. In the meantime, let's take a look at the forecast.
Get set for a wet spell. TUI sponsors STV Weather.
Well, overnight last night and into this morning, we did see some quite strong winds around. These are our top 3 locations that recorded the maximum wind gusts. South Uist 70 miles per hour, Tyree 62 miles per hour, and Alt Bay 61 miles per hour. The strong winds will continue to be a feature as we head through the weekend. But as we head through this evening and overnight, initially we will start to see some mist and fog patches forming before the winds start to pick up ahead of this next band of cloud and rain that's spreading in from the west. There will be some heavier bursts in the mix as that works its way eastwards, and the winds will continue to strengthen, possibly reaching gusts of between 35 and 40 miles per hour, particularly around exposed coastal parts. Temperature-wise tonight, we'll reach our minimum quite early on in the night, lows of around 4 or 5 degrees Celsius, but by 3 a.m. those temperatures climbing to around 9 or 10. Now, through tomorrow morning, that band of rain will continue to steadily work its way eastwards, and then it's a slowly improving picture through the day. The sky's clearing from the west. There will be plenty of sunny spells through the afternoon. By late afternoon, though, we do start to see some further showers just spreading in from the south and west, with temperatures slightly above average for the time of year, reaching highs around 8 or 9 degrees Celsius. Looking ahead to Sunday now, overall a mixture of sunny spells and further blustery showers. More organised showers across western parts with highs of around 8 degrees Celsius. Bye-bye.
TUI sponsors STV Weather.
Well, that's all from us for now. The late news is at 5 to 11 tonight.
And of course we will have bulletins throughout the weekend. From all of us, thanks for watching. Have a good night.
Bye-bye.